Hello, and welcome to the Drug Discovery World podcast, a podcast covering topics around drug discovery and development, pharma and biotech. My name is Giles, and I'm here to take you through this episode. Today's episode is part one of a series of episodes titled Integrated Platform Drug Discovery and Development Companies. The article is written by Dr. Urban A. Kiernan and Dr. Stephen Naylor. So now on to the main article. Integrated Platform Drug Discovery and Development Companies, Part 1. Technology was lauded as the saviour of the drug discovery and development process during the late 1990s. A myriad of independent companies developed and offered innovative tools, technologies and platforms to pharmaceutical companies in order to mitigate the time, cost and risk of developing new therapeutic drugs. However, comparative analysis of FDA-approved New Molecular Entity, NME, and New Therapeutic Biologic, NTB, annual historical numbers announced, does not reflect any significant productivity enhancement impact of such efforts. More recently, there has been some attempt to amalgamate platform technologies within startup and early-stage drug discovery and development companies to increase drug candidate pipeline numbers. This strategy does not come without risks, but has quietly been implemented by a number of platform drug discovery and development companies. We explore this issue and use Moderna Therapeutics as our case study to highlight the limitations and potential impact on company valuation of such an integrated approach. In 2001, the consulting group Accenture published a landmark report entitled High Performance Drug Discovery, an operating model for a new era. The authors proposed that pharmaceutical companies could enhance their productivity by focusing on 6 key strategic areas. The majority of the recommendations invoked the implementation and development of new and/or integrated platforms that included 1. Analytical omic technologies, 2. Information gathering and knowledge determination capabilities, 3. Decision-making tools, 4. Access to early-stage technology innovation through alliance and partnership arrangements. This report, plus others, stimulated the pharmaceutical sector to invest into a plethora of new technologies. However, with hindsight, there appeared to be a somewhat arbitrary attempt to utilize such tools, technologies and platforms, also referred to as TTPs, in their in-house drug discovery and development initiatives. The authors analyzed these efforts and subsequently published their findings in a 2007 paper entitled Technology, Bane or Bonanza for the Pharmaceutical Industry. They concluded that indiscriminate use of tools, technologies and platforms in the drug discovery and development process was not the panacea for lackluster or stagnant productivity, and suggested that a more focused and integrated implementation of such tools, technologies and platforms should result in a significantly improved output of therapeutic drug products. Alas, they were wrong in their optimistic pronouncements. In 1938, the USA Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act was enacted and heralded the advent of the New Drug Application, NDA, and the New Molecular Entity, NME, descriptors. These pivotal designations, along with NDAs filed and NMEs approved, have subsequently served as productivity indicators of the pharmaceutical industry. We've noted previously that since the 1950s there have been perceptible downward trends of NDA filings as well as NME approvals by the FDA. This downward spiral continued during the period 1997 to 2007, even when there was a concerted effort by pharmaceutical companies to utilize more tools, technologies and platforms in the drug discovery and development process. The single-year exception for productivity was in 2004, when both novel drugs approved and therapeutic drug filings increased. This was, coincidentally, the year that the FDA introduced the new designation of Biologic License Applications, BLAs, and New Therapeutic Biologics, NTBs. After the authors wrote their article predicting the positive impact of technologies on the drug discovery and development process, NDA, BLA filings, and NME, NTB approvals did not change significantly from 2008 to 17, with the exception of 2017. Thus, the pronouncement that the strategic utilization of tools, technologies, and platforms alone should improve therapeutic drug product output really did not materialize. In the past, third-party service providers to pharmaceutical companies have developed such tools, technologies, and platforms. Pharmaceutical companies then attempted to incorporate these TTPs in-house, but with limited success, as discussed. More recently, there has been some re-evaluation of TTP incorporation and concomitant use in the drug discovery and development process. A small number of companies, such as Combinator-X, attempted to create their own in-house proprietary integrated platform drug discovery and development, otherwise known as PD3, approach. However, there was significant criticism of such efforts. It was suggested that most small pharma or biopharma companies did not have the bandwidth to carry out such an approach, since it would lead to dilution of effort, poor tactical and strategic decision-making, and a lack of focus. More recently, a number of companies have not only ignored such criticism, but also forged ahead with an innovative new model. This episode discusses the issues facing such companies, and how to implement integrated platform drug discovery and development, PD3, efforts to populate individual company drug pipeline. We discuss the trials, tribulations, and successes of the PD3 company, Moderna Therapeutics, to highlight issues associated with this approach. Platform technologies and drug discovery and development. The words tool, technology, and platform are often used interchangeably. However, in the biotech and drug discovery and development sectors, a single tool is a component item. Think hammer on a carpenter's tool belt, which when combined together constitutes a technology. Think carpenter's tool belt. A combination of technologies, when applied in a cohesive manner, can be labeled as a platform. Think the carpenter him herself, complete with tool belt, safety glasses, mode of transportation, etc. In this article, we use such relationships to provide a general perspective on what constitutes a platform, whether it is technological, biological, molecular, or digital in nature. Problems of individual technology and platform implementation. The original efforts by pharmaceutical companies to integrate tools, technologies, and platforms, TTPs, into the drug discovery and development process were comprised by flawed implementation strategies. Pharmaceutical companies would attempt to bring such TTPs in-house from third-party development companies. However, most pharmaceutical management teams responsible for such decisions were often isolated and unaware of the complexities associated with technology development and implementation cycles. The global pipeline of TTPs was a complicated mishmash of products at various stages of developmental maturity, and the rush to acquire them was often fraught with internal pressures and misunderstandings. This often resulted in the consideration and adoption of TTPs that were traversing various parts of the technology development cycle. The technology hype cycle, THC, compounded the flawed decision-making process of which TTP to adopt. The THC describes the enthusiasm that often greets new technologies and the subsequent disenchantment that follows. It consists of 5 stages. 1. Technology trigger. Product launch produces excitement. 2. Peak of inflated expectations. A frenzy of publicity generates over-enthusiastic assessment and unrealistic expectations. 3. Trough of disillusionment. Expectations have not been met, and advocates, plus most general interested parties, abandon the technology or platform. 4. Slope of enlightenment. Some businesses continue to evaluate and develop the technology or platform and determine its limitations, as well as realistic and practical applications. And 5. Plateau of productivity. Benefits of the technology or platform are demonstrated, and it becomes stable, evolving through further improved generations. Pharmaceutical scientists and management were often caught up in the throes of the technology hype cycle. There were significant pressures to adopt such hype technologies in order to remain competitive with other pharmaceutical companies. The problems were compounded by the psychological factor of not missing that one technology that may affect the paradigm shift that everyone was seeking. Paradoxically, there was also the possibility that a promising new technology or platform could be prematurely abandoned if it was in the trough of disillusionment stage. In either scenario, it was critically important that the decision process of adoption and/or abandonment of the technology was predicated on objective assessment of whether it met the tactical and strategic needs of the scientific, clinical, and management teams. Hence, it was vitally important for any pharmaceutical management team to be acutely aware of the THC and its potential impact on acquiring any TTP. Other factors that were poorly understood and usually ignored were the technology assimilation and technology innovation adoption S-curves. The assimilation of technologies is determined by a simple set of criteria. Initially, teams experiment with a technology or platform in a classic kicking the tires type scenario. Subsequently, the technology or platform is assessed for its efficiency and convenience factors, followed by its effectiveness in carrying out a task or producing quality data output. Ultimately, the technology or platform is assimilated into constant use if it provides an unprecedented opportunity to carry out previously unthinkable experiments or insight into solving a complex set of problems. In the case of the TIA S-curve, technology innovation adoption, it has been described previously in detail elsewhere, but it is initially characterized by a very small number of innovators, 1 to 3% of adopters, who over a period of time, typically years, invent and champion the technology or platform. Depending on a variety of factors, additional cohorts of individuals will ultimately adopt the technology or platform, and they include early adopters, around 13 to 15%, opinion leaders, early and late majority adopters, 30 to 35%, and the laggards at 12 to 16%. Assessing the status of a technology or platform and where it is on the adoption curve is not a simple process. For example, the television was invented in 1926, but it was not until the 1960s, 40 years later, that the laggards finally adopted this now ubiquitous technology. Often, the cycle of technology and platform adoption can take decades for successful technologies or platforms to reach levels of widespread acceptance, and in a majority of cases, a technology or platform is ultimately abandoned. It is clear that the evaluation and valuation of technologies and platforms was not a simple process. Many factors had to be considered, including the status of the technology or platform in the technology development, THC, as well as the technology assimilation and TIC S-curves. Scientists and managers had to make pressure-laden decisions about the implementation and adoption of technologies and platforms at various levels of maturity in an often time-constrained manner. Under such circumstances, it is not surprising that errors of judgment were made, resulting in the acquisition and/or adoption of technologies or platforms that were neither mature nor suitable for implementation into the drug discovery and development process. Given such scenarios, it is not surprising that there was a lack of any significant increase in drug discovery and development productivity by pharmaceutical companies in the 1990s to 2000s. Types of platform drug discovery and development companies. What is a PD3 company? Borrowing from Robert Thong's thoughtful and well-articulated analyses, such companies contain 1. Scientific and technological core competencies. 2. These competencies are utilized to generate new therapeutic drug candidates. 3. Enhanced application of such competencies across a range of disease indications. These platform companies can consist of proprietary hardware, biological, molecular, and digital technologies, or some hybrid mix of some or all of them combined. They typically evolve through several stages of growth and development. Thong has highlighted that the genesis of such platform companies can be through an academic-driven startup or a spin-out from an existing pharmaceutical company. The company must be able to generate a revenue stream and so establish a credible technology and/or service provider capability. They must be able to enter into service provision contracts with a number of pharmaceutical clients, as well as complete the usual milestones associated with such deals. As the company evolves and develops a credible reputation associated with aggressive fundraising, then it can start to fund its own platform-driven proprietary projects and create its own drug candidates in specific disease indications. In this stage of growth, the platform company will partner with large pharmaceutical companies who fund the expensive late-stage clinical trials and navigate the complex NDA, BLA discussions with the FDA. Finally, the company may ultimately transform itself into a fully fledged pharma or biopharma company, suffering all the travails of risk, but potentially enjoying all the rich rewards of its own drug candidates reaching market. PD3 companies must create a credible reputation, which is intimately tied to successful fundraising and revenue generation. As noted, most such companies undergo a methodical evolution primarily determined by financial needs, and will now describe these options. 1. Platform technology partnering. Licensing of the platform and providing related services to pharmaceutical companies are a low-risk, fast revenue-generating option. In addition, it also serves as an expeditious route to platform validation. The client absorbs all the financial risk, that includes upfront technology licensing fees, fee-for-service revenue stream, and near-term preclinical milestone payments are earned irrespective of whether the project eventually results in an approved pharmaceutical product. The downside is that the client owns any pharmaceutical assets that emerge from the project, but the platform company may earn limited, single-digit royalties on marketed products. 2. Asset creation and out-licensing. In this scenario, the platform company develops its own drug candidates predicated on the platform and out-licenses such molecules to large pharma. The latter assumes responsibility for completing late-stage clinical trials and commercialization of the drug. The financial returns can be considerable, with significant upfront payments, milestones, and double-digit royalties on future sales. In addition, the PD3 company has mitigated cost and risk by transference to the pharmaceutical partner. The downside is that compared to a simple technology partnering play, the PD3 company has increased its own time and cost commitment, as well as the necessity of acquiring appropriate disease domain expertise. 3. Product development and commercialization. A PD3 company that has its own candidate drug with in-house regulatory and commercialization expertise can make the transition to a pharma or biopharma company. This option is attractive, given the potential high financial return on a successful marketed drug. In this case, the financial burden and risk exposure is greatly increased, and the company may lack the necessary expertise for late-stage clinical development, manufacturing scale-up, regulatory approval, payer reimbursement negotiations, commercial brand management, and sales promotion. And 4. A hybrid approach. Most early-stage platform companies start with either the technology partnering or the asset creation and out-licensing approach. The former generates revenue faster with lower financial risk. With higher investor funding and a greater risk appetite, the latter generates a much better return if successful, and it might be essential in a very competitive situation where you initially have to demonstrate technological superiority with your own pharmaceutical assets. An increasing number of research stage companies operate a hybrid business model that combines both these two approaches. Examples of platform drug discovery and development companies. Historically, there have been numerous attempts at creating PD3 companies, resulting in mixed outcomes. One of the first such innovative companies was a Nubar Phaeon, Flagship Ventures, now renamed Flagship Pioneering, creation, namely Beyond Genomics. This was the world's first systems biology company that attempted a foray into PD3. The problems encountered by Beyond Genomics were myriad in nature. While its systems biology platform was highly innovative, the company ultimately failed in its PD3 efforts because it was not purpose-built for drug discovery and development. In stark contrast, another company, Combinatrix, was a purpose-built PD3 company, and many consider it the archetypal example. The failure of Combinatrix, however, was not due to its initial PD3 efforts and spectacular productivity of combination of candidate drugs for a variety of disease indications. The company floundered on the jagged rocks of drug development. In the case of both Beyond Genomics and Combinatrix, analysis of their failures is instructive. It highlighted the fact that to build a successful PD3 company requires a myriad of skill sets and expertise, and was certainly part of the reason why many analysts in the mid-2000s were skeptical about such endeavors, as discussed. Currently, it is estimated that there are more than 100 different PD3 companies. At least 5 of these companies are classified as unicorns, which refers to a privately held startup or early-stage entity valued at more than $1 billion. As we noted, the platforms of such companies can be technology, biological, molecular, or digital-based, or some hybrid combination. The size and valuation of these companies spans a considerable range that includes behemoths such as publicly traded entities like Ionis Pharmaceuticals, Akia Therapeutics, and Ablinks. However, the list also contains much smaller privately held companies such as Serenus and Meteor Pharmaceuticals. More recently, the authors of this article founded iMetabolic Biopharma Corporation. They are a precision medicine PD3 company intent on developing biological therapeutics for the treatment of obesity-related diseases. Currently, they are focused on the treatment of the hyperlipidermic disorder familial chylomicronemia syndrome. They are assembling a platform that contains functional modules that span across a sophisticated artificial intelligence (AI) discovery capability, coupled with a protein molecular dynamic simulation hybridized with an array of other innovative biopharma drug discovery and development modules. The implementation of this platform, even at such an early stage, has shown their ability to systematically translate data content into functional biology in the form of innovative protein drug candidates. They are just at the beginning of their journey, which is in stark contrast to the monster PD3 company Moderna Therapeutics, which we'll discuss in the next part of this series. This article was written by Dr. Urban A. Kiernan and Dr. Stephen Naylor, and we'll go through their bios at the end of this series of episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, then you can subscribe to Drug Discovery World free of charge by visiting our website at ddw-online.com, where you can also view all of our articles including references and images, and download the original PDFs. All the links are in the show notes. If you're enjoying the podcast, then please do leave us a review and subscribe. We'd massively appreciate it. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thank you for listening, and we'll hope to see you in our next episode.